The Trunk in the Attic. The house was eerily quiet as Henry and Clara sat in the lawyer's office. Their attorney, a longtime family friend, looked at them over his glasses with a mix of sadness and resolve. "You two," he said, his voice firm but kind, "if you're going to go through with this divorce, I strongly advise you to settle your estate first. If you let the courts and lawyers do it, there won't be much left for either of you." Reluctantly, they agreed. That afternoon, they returned to their shared home one last time to divide their possessions. The house, once filled with love and laughter, now felt cold and divided. Much like their hearts, they started in the living room. Clara insisted on keeping the floral-patterned sofa that she had picked out years ago, while Henry argued for the armchair he always sat in. Their voices rose and fell as they negotiated, each trying to claim pieces of a life they had built together. Next, they moved to the dining room. The dishes, the silverware, the antique cabinet, everything was up for grabs. It felt as though they were tearing apart not just a house, but years of memories. Finally, they climbed the narrow staircase to the attic, a dusty old garret filled with forgotten relics. Among the cobwebs and faded boxes was an old trunk. It was heavy, its lock rusted with age. Together, they pried it open, revealing a treasure trove of items from their past, yellowed photographs, love letters from their early days, and keepsakes from family trips. As they sifted through the contents, their bickering continued. "This is mine," Clara snapped, holding up a lace scarf. "No, I gave that to you. It's mine," Henry retorted, reaching for it. Then, as they rummaged deeper, their hands simultaneously grasped a small, soft object. They paused, startled, and slowly lifted it together. It was a tiny pair of baby shoes. Worn but well kept, they were a bittersweet reminder of their child, the baby boy who had passed away years ago. The room fell silent. Their hands lingered on the shoes, trembling slightly. Neither could claim them. They belonged to both of them, just as their child had. Henry looked up first, his eyes meeting Clara's. For the first time in years, their gazes were free of anger. Instead, they were filled with shared sorrow and understanding. "I miss him," Clara whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Me too," Henry replied, his voice breaking. In that moment, the weight of their shared grief became a bridge between them. They saw not enemies, but two people who had once loved deeply and still carried the scars of that love. Without a word, they embraced, holding each other tightly as the baby shoes rested between them. The anger and bitterness that had driven them apart melted away, replaced by a fragile but undeniable connection. The next morning, they returned to their attorney's office. "We've changed our minds," Henry said. "There won't be a divorce. Sometimes all it takes is remembering what we share to bring us back together." And just like that, they found their way back to each other, not through possessions or arguments, but through a simple pair of baby shoes and the love they had in common. God commands husbands and wives to love each other as a reflection of His love. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave Himself for it. Ephesians 5:25. "So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself." Ephesians 5:28. Unconditional and lasting love. "Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things." 1 Corinthians 13:4, 7. "For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh." Ephesians 5:31.